In this lesson, we'll go over the basics of landing an F-16 in visual flight rules conditions using a straight-in approach. This will also be useful later for the overhead brake and instrument flight rules landing lessons. I have the lesson paused so we can set the aircraft up in preparation for the approach. Then we'll land the aircraft and shut it down. Press spacebar to continue. Start by checking your fuel quantity on the fuel quantity indicator. Enough fuel should be remaining to land safely, but too much fuel can lengthen the landing roll and make stopping the aircraft much more difficult. You're fine here, but you may want to burn some fuel off if you return from a mission early. Also, verify no red is visible on the indicator needles that indicate a fuel imbalance. This should be corrected by transferring fuel with the engine feed knob on the fuel control panel before landing. Fuel is automatically balanced under normal conditions, so this should be very rare. Press spacebar to continue. Next, verify the landing light switch is in the up landing position. This will make your aircraft easier to see by the tower controllers or other pilots near the airfield, and provide illumination you need in dark conditions. Also, set the master arm and laser arm switches to off to save the weapon systems. Press spacebar to continue. Now, verify your attitude references match. The pitch and roll attitude on your HUD, the ADI and standby ADI should agree. Left-click the standby ADI knob to cage and uncage if recalibration is necessary. Then, on the altimeter, verify the current airfield altimeter setting of 2992 is set. You can rotate the pressure setting knob with the mouse wheel to select a new setting if it becomes necessary. Also, verify the altitude displayed on the HUD matches the altitude on the altimeter in both the electrical and pneumatic altimeter modes within plus or minus 75 feet. Set the altimeter back to electric mode when you're done, and press spacebar to continue. Next, stow the targeting pod camera if installed by selecting the targeting pod control page on the MFD and selecting standby. This is done prior to takeoff and landing to prevent foreign object damage to components. We have no pod installed for this lesson, so press spacebar to continue. A 2.5 degree glide slope is standard for an F-16 final approach. To measure a glide slope angle, reference the flight path marker on the HUD in relation to the pitch ladder. Now when you're ready, press spacebar and I'll unpause the lesson. After the lesson is unpaused, reduce your throttle and fly through the gates ahead. I'll talk you through the approach as we go. Verify your airspeed is below 300 knots and lower the landing gear by moving the landing gear control handle down. Do this by clicking on the handle or pressing the G key. The trailing edge flaps will automatically lower as the gear extend. Once the gear and flaps are down, check that all three wheels down lights are illuminated green on the left side of the instrument panel next to the gear handle. This confirms the landing gear are down and locked. An additional pitch ladder at 2.5 degrees will be added to the HUD when the landing gear are extended. You're on glide slope when both the 2.5 degree pitch ladder and flight path marker are placed at the end of the runway. Press spacebar to continue. Now open the speed brakes using the switch on your throttle and increase throttle to maintain speed if necessary. The slightly higher throttle setting required with the increased drag from the speed brakes will keep you from constantly bumping against the idle stop on approach. This is also one less thing you'll have to remember to do after touchdown. Press spacebar to continue. Keep flying through the gates and reduce speed to achieve the on-speed angle of attack of 11 degrees. This is the AOA that will provide the best approach speed and handling characteristics for your aircraft's weight. Use the throttle to adjust your speed and glide path and pitch trim to adjust your AOA. 2 or 3 clicks of nose-up trim with a trim head on your stick will help maintain you near 11 degrees. As a guide, place the flight path marker on the HUD at the top of the AOA bracket on the HUD. The bracket ranges from 11 degrees at the top to 15 degrees at the bottom. The AOA indexer lies to the left of the HUD frame will differ from other aircraft in that the bottom yellow chevron will still be illuminated when the on-speed AOA is achieved. The AOA indicator at the bottom center of the instrument panel also displays AOA. Use the first part of this approach to practice stabilized, on-speed flight. At this point, you should be on speed and on glide slope. The 2.5-degree pitch ladder on the HUD and the flight path marker should be placed at the end of the runway. This is the most challenging part coming up, so exit the mission and try again if things don't go exactly as planned. For now though, continue on your approach. Now, when we're over the overrun, the portion of the runway before the primary surface starts, shift the flight path marker forward to a point 300 to 500 feet down the runway. Gently pull back on the stick to flare and reduce the descent rate, but don't level off. Pull the throttle back to idle and touch down with a maximum AOA of 13 degrees. More than 15 degrees during the landing rollout may cause the speed brakes or engine nozzle to contact the runway, so use gentle stick inputs to avoid over-controlling the aircraft. Okay, maintain 13 degrees nose up for aero braking until your airspeed is below 100 knots. Use the gun cross and pitch ladder in the HUD as a guide. Reduce backstake pressure and lower the nose wheel to the runway. Open the speed brakes fully and maintain full aft stick for maximum braking effectiveness. Apply moderate to heavy braking to slow the aircraft and maintain track down the center line with the rudder. Okay, well done. Continue to taxi down the runway and take the next taxiway to the left. Only engage nose wheel steering when below 30 knots, and this is required earlier to prevent departure from the runway. Now that the aircraft is safely back on the ground, it's time to start powering down systems and preparing for shutdown. These tasks may be performed as you taxi. Some airfields also have an arm-de-arm area you can pull into to complete the tasks if desired. Press spacebar when you're ready to continue and we'll have a look at those. First, close the speed brakes using the switch on your throttle, or left control B. Then, position the probe heat switch to off. Leaving heating applied to the probe without airflow to cool it may damage probe components. Also, raise the ejection safety lever on your seat to the up, safe position. The ejection seat is safed after landing to prevent an inadvertent ejection. At ground egress, it's usually preferable to ejection in a ground emergency. Press spacebar to continue. Next, verify again the master arm and laser arm switches are set to off. Weapons release and laser firing are inhibited on the ground, but the position of the switches is always verified as a safety measure before entering the parking area. Then, begin to power down all avionics systems that are no longer needed. This may be delayed until you're stopped at the parking location if you wish to record data or maintain INS alignment. Also, set your landing lights switch to the down, taxi position. These lights are extremely powerful, so set the switch to off as you enter the parking spot as a courtesy to your crew chief. Continue to taxi to the parking spot of your choice and work to shut the aircraft down. Press spacebar to continue when you have parked. Okay, when you have come to a complete stop and have turned all avionics systems off and are ready to shut down, pull the throttle aft past the idle stop. This terminates ignition and shuts off fuel supply to the engine. The engine spools down and the generator drops offline. Caution and warning lights are to be expected. Press spacebar to continue. Next, confirm the JFS run light is off on the engine control panel. The light could indicate a problem with JFS that should be reported to the crew chief. Then, after the main generator power drops offline, check the EPU Gen and EPU PMG lights are off on the EPU panel. The lights on may indicate an impending activation of the EPU and a hazardous condition. Press spacebar to continue. Set the main power switch to off. This shuts off battery power to the aircraft systems. Delay this until after RPM decreases through 20%. This delay should allow the exhaust nozzle to remain open and make it easier for the crew chief to accomplish the post-flight or through-flight inspection. Then last, unlock the canopy by clicking the yellow canopy handle and open the canopy using the switch on the sidewall or left control seat. And at this point, congratulations, you will have successfully landed and shut down the F-16. We'll cover an overhead brake and instrument approach in later lessons. And for now, you can continue looking around or end the lesson by pressing escape.